This is the Smoak Stack, brought to you by SeatGeek. For the best deals on tickets, click the link in the description. Now, let's get to the rundown.
All right, here we go. The transfer portal again tomorrow opens up. This is from part of a Max Olson article, a column, but also Jana Bardal, who's a new member of theathletic.com. She'll join us tomorrow. Of the 2,303 FBS scholarship players who entered the portal last cycle, roughly 300 were repeat transfers. More than 400 multi-time FBS transfers have entered the portal in the current cycle, and that's even before it officially opens.
That's going to be the new normal, is teams, having guys that have been to 3 places, maybe even 4. It's difficult to get to 4 because you only have 5 years of eligibility, especially now with COVID years will start ending here soon. So it'll be difficult to get to 4, but people will do it. And I'm not sure if I want a person who's been at 4. I'm not nuts about people who've necessarily been to 3, but that's just, you're going to have to get used to that. And it's hopefully they find a place that is mutually beneficial for both sides.
Yeah, I mean, here we are, and it's another go-around, and I think that we're expecting to see chaos based on all the media guys who have been, posting about it. It's chaos. Prepare yourselves for this next wave of the transfer portal, and there's been all the doomsday or the warnings of how nuts this is going to be, this go-around in particular. So I don't know if that's just hype or I don't think it's just hype. I think it's just a matter of, how much it's been hyped up. What are we going to see once this opens up starting tomorrow? Because now the expectations are we're going to see some big-time fish out in that ocean of the transfer portal. So I'm very curious of who all jumps in and what that changes for schools around the country and, what kind of chaos we are looking at. So, yeah, we've been warned, and now we're going to see for real what all that warning was about when it comes to who's going to be jumping in there.
Garrett, we'll go to the other part of it, not now. We'll go to the Chris Hummer list a little bit later on after we go through the rest of whatever is today's sports news, including Samuel Brown. Remember, Matthew Golden transferred to UT after entering the portal. Samuel Brown, 62 catches, 800-plus yards, 3 touchdowns expected, according to Aaron Wilson, who covers the NFL, to enter the NCAA transfer portal. This could get to a point where we could go on for probably minutes upon minutes upon minutes. Today, somewhat quiet, with more will enter. Tomorrow, of course, the floodgates open, and we'll know more about actually who is a part of the new transfer portal window. Troy Dannon, Nebraska AD. We'll have Matt Rule on in about an hour, their football coach. Look at these quotes. There's going to be some meritocracy versus more of a social approach to revenue distribution. You'll eventually see that within leagues, you'll eventually see that across sports, maybe other than football, and eat what you kill. In some respects, that mentality. It's going to be much more performance-based and outcomes when it comes to generating revenue necessary to compete. The college football playoff decisions have been made so far show that. Not breaking news, but yet another AD mentioning that.
No, I do think it is interesting to note, especially given what's going on with the ACC, where, tiered revenue distribution is a big thing for them if they were to stay together going forward, which appears less and less likely by the second because Florida State and Clemson both want out. And so let's just say Florida State and Clemson get into, one of these Super 2 trademark Craig Smoke leagues, and those leagues then, they're, have a new organization, some sort of super league, whatever happens. Well, that super league is probably going to have to be determined on who gets the most ratings and who gets the most money in kind of an ever-shifting revenue flow year to year. It may be an incentive type thing for other programs, but that's what all this is all about, is who gets the most money and who feels they deserve the most money, rightfully or wrongfully.
Wow, imagine that, actually doing it based on performance and not just what league you're in. So, yeah, I think that's a good way to go. I think to eat what you kill is a good way to do things. Now, there's going to be a longer road to hoe for some schools that don't have all the built-in advantages of some of the other ones. So, I don't know, though, that that's any different than the way they've been operating for the most part. I think this is, the changing of of the old ways to the new ways, and the new ways are still somewhat, blurry. We can't see the future 2020 just yet, but we're starting to see it come more into focus, and certainly you make money based on what you do has become a recurring theme throughout the leagues, throughout just the overall conversation about the future. Very vague still, but I think that is the way to go. I mean, why would we not want you to get what you get based on what you did, not what league you got assigned to in 1910 or, whatever you happen to latch on to. If the school goes and has major success, they should be rewarded for it. There's got to still be some little carryover so that there is still some food supplied at the bottom of the chain for whoever's in your league. So how all that works out, I don't know moving forward, but I definitely think there's been a lot of signs that this is the way forward. And, I'm just, I guess, interested like everybody else to see what exactly that looks like in the long run.
All right, so Jacoby Walter, Baylor. Not surprisingly, Eve Missy last week when it was during the time when Scott Drew was looking at Kentucky and also staying at Baylor, which we know the answer to that. Paul was all over that Thursday and Friday. Jacoby Walter, he is someone that I saw Trae Young, who obviously knows a little bit about the NBA and basketball, saying that this young man's like a cold-blooded killer when it comes to shooting. At times flashed that at Baylor. At times, maybe you wondered where he was. One of the things I know about this young man is he's incredibly good. Like, seemed like salt to the earth good when it comes to who he is and how he has gone about business. Even Scott Drew tearing up after the loss in the second round of the tournament about how the one and done, he was not that type of an attitude where he seemed like he was all in it for a long time.
Well, there is an interesting thing at the end of this, Smokey. You see, he says, I have decided to declare for the 2024 NBA draft. I'm wondering if he is, in fact, hiring an agent or if he's made that decision yet. If he hires an agent, then he is not coming back. If he doesn't hire an agent,
if he doesn't get like good numbers or good feedback from the NBA, in other words,
well, then that would be fantastic news for Baylor with the guys they've got coming in. But we'll see. I think he's going to get good feedback, and then he'll hire an agent probably straight away. But Eve Misi said last week that he was definitely hiring an agent, so we know what his plan is he's going to go. And look, he might have just left that part out. It would shock me if he came back to college basketball.
Yeah, and why would Trae Young know something about Jacoby Walter? Well, because Jacoby Walter played on his summer team.
Yep.
So there you go. He played on Team Trae Young. And I hate to stop things down here, but we were gone for a few days, so we haven't commented on Scott Drew staying. So
I'm kidding. Go ahead. Well, you and I were out of pocket. You're right. With Jennifer
we haven't
Daniels'
been here.
wedding. Yep.
We haven't been here for a couple shows, so we missed all of the hoopla. And we were both right in the end. We both expected Scott Drew to stay. He stayed. And I'm thrilled that he did. I happened to drive past a different way, past Foster Pavilion on my way here, and just, kind of hit different because that's the place he helped build and the place that he's going to continue to help build. And there's a lot of construction going on there. What are they going to do with Robinson Tower, by the way? Any idea, guys?
I haven't heard that they're going to tear it down.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's like right in front of the building. I just wondered if y'all had heard anything or not. Okay. So, but anyways, that's the way I had driven across.
What it would be good to do is knock it down and create more parking.
That's kind of what I was getting at. Yeah. So they're building that parking garage over there, but I was wondering if there's any plans that I hadn't heard about yet. But yeah, I'm thrilled that Scott Drew's staying. He's going to keep a very good recruiting class together, and obviously a program that's got a lot going for it. Will have their head man in charge. Kentucky seems thrilled with where they landed. Hate that for BYU, obviously. Mark Pope, the trickle-down effect ended up still hitting a team in the Big 12. But I know that people here are thrilled, and I'm excited to see Scott Drew continue to build on what he's helped create here in Waco.
I'm happy. We all felt he would stay. That was Kentucky, though, and so you never know. But I thought and we're going to have a note here in a minute on Kentucky with Mark Pope coming in from BYU, which Paul covered on Friday. I'm thrilled he's staying. He's a program builder initially, but he's also been a sustainable coach at Baylor and has found ways like a chameleon to build this team or build the roster in different ways, including what he's got coming in and also those he might bring in from the portal.
Especially amazing considering he was reported to have taken the Kentucky job by like multiple places, which turned out to not be the case whatsoever.
Fraud Central.
It's just, man, there's some shoddy reporting going on out there, and these days just in general where you throw something and hope that it sticks so that you can say, I was right. And if you don't, you delete it or you just pretend like you didn't put it out there. Because, yeah, I saw Scott Drew's, this and Scott Drew's that, and Scott Drew's still in Waco. So good for the Bears. Sorry for the Cougars, like I said. So we'll see how that ends up for them. But I could tell Mark Pope became a fan favorite very quickly. They went from sour on that choice to like he could do no harm after walking off the bus with the national championship team and the trophy and just the family and the old jerseys. I mean, he hit on every Kentucky nostalgia sweet spot note. So I think he's already getting A+ across the board, and they've forgotten about Scott Drew anyways.
Here's the thing that Kentucky did is that they were like so driven on, we got to get this resume. We got to get this resume. We got to get this resume. You have to have this national title. Well, everybody who's won a national title at some point in their career hasn't won a national title. Like nobody was born under the earth with already a ring, right? Mm-hmm. Nobody has that. So you have to get to that point. Also, I think part of it is SEC snobbery and Kentucky snobbery where you don't look at the facts of the case. Look, outside of Mark Pope being on the 96, Wildcat championship team and playing for Rick Pitino, he took over a BYU team, brought them into the most difficult night in, night out conference in the country, and was picked 13th, beat Kansas in Lawrence, beat Baylor, beat many other tournament teams throughout the year, and got into the NCAA tournament. That's no small feat, and he did that with a team that was rebuilding. All he has to do at Kentucky, now granted you have to rebuild your roster every year, and Kentucky's had a wave of guys in the portal already, but it's still Kentucky. He's got to get him one more weekend, and that's progress at Kentucky, which has many more resources for basketball than BYU does currently. So, again, I think maybe they kind of looked at the actual resume and went like, oh, well, this makes sense. I get it now, And the other thing, I think people need to realize this. When the discourse happens of Jay Wright told him no, Danny Hurley told them no, Billy Donovan told them no, well, the only person who actually got an offer was Scott Drew. So the only person who told them no was Scott Drew. Now, the other ones might have declined to interview through the agent, but that doesn't mean they told him no, because Mitch Barnhart might have gotten down the road with any one of those guys and gone, well, this isn't a right fit either. So that's the other part of the reporting I think that gets erroneous, because how many people actually said no?
Yeah, and I will say it's semantics, but there will be Kentucky people that will tell you till they're blue in the face, Scott Drew never got an offer, because, there's that pride thing of well, we didn't get turned down.
Right.
He didn't officially get offered. Well, yeah, you don't officially get offered until you basically let it be known you're taking the job. And so that's the whole trick with the coaching staffs. That's how your AD always says, this is the only guy we offered the job, even though there's 6 people that turned it down. And so, yeah, Scott Drew's in that camp. But good for Kentucky. And, again, we'll see where BYU lands.
Garrett, I just sent you an email, if you don't mind looking at it, to have for the next story. Rick Pitino knows a lot about Kentucky basketball. This is from Pitino earlier today after he said he saw the Pope press conference to the former captain. Not shocked, but pleasantly surprised. Would expect nothing less from Coach Mark Pope. Also, St. John's basketball accepts this year at UK, next year at the Mecca, and also looking forward to saying goodbye to Kentucky men's basketball. If you didn't see the video, we can't play the video. They came into, Rupp Arena on a bus, a team bus, with a lot of former players of that team and Kentucky greats, and then Mark Pope with that national championship plaque that they won back in the mid-'90s. It was really cool. Very, very cool. So good luck to Mark Pope moving forward at Kentucky. Now, we mentioned the transfer portal, the men's basketball transfer portal. Of course, that also is going on. Texas has picked up a name or two. But today, Dylan Mitchell, very excitable player, a guy that at times you wondered if he was consistent enough, and yet again with guys like Disu and also Asmus and others around him, There's a lot of guys who wanted the ball, a lot of guys who wanted to score, but he's at least entered the portal. Strong, forward from Texas. So there we are with that. Dylan Mitchell is now available for now.
Yeah, I think he's going to go. I think he's probably going to. Well, I mean, Austin can always do that, but I think that Texas and Rodney Terry needs to find. He had stars, and he still will have some, but they needed maybe a second level of worker bees that were kind of in the middle a little bit more, or some. He needs some culture guys.
You mean the guys that weren't knocking people
and
on the baseline and getting ejected
and so
and flagrant fouls?
That's the problem, is that they had their fan sold that Brock Cunningham is not a bad culture guy. Look, if you're getting kicked out of games repeatedly, you're a bad culture guy. It's not good for your team. Like, one of them, yes, was in a blowout of Texas Tech. So if you're a Texas fan, you'd be like, well, he was just sending a message to the rest of the league. Well, then he continued after that to send it and send it and send it again and stop down games. They're like, was this another flagrant, or was he just being reckless? They've got to get that out, and they've got to move ahead. Now, Rodney Terry also has a problem where he has to turn down his rabbit ears. So if Dylan Mitchell goes somewhere else, wouldn't be surprised, and I would not be surprised if that place is Arkansas.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any insight on where he might land. That sounds, like it would be a good spot. I don't know all his connections and backgrounds, but obviously a really highly rated guy and a guy with a big-time skill set. Averaged a little over 9 points and 7 boards, I think I saw in this past year. So I think there's definitely, with the expectations that he had, some more juice to squeeze. And we'll see if that's in Fayetteville or wherever else it might be. But I think with what Texas is doing, I doubt he's probably coming back. And I don't know what the percentages are of all the numbers and things that people spit out when it comes to college sports these days. I wonder what the retention rate is of guys who go into the portal. We hear about the percentages of all the people that enter and all that, but like, what are the averages of those who enter and then decide we're going to come back? I don't think it's a very high number. So yeah, I'd imagine Dylan Mitchell's on his way somewhere else. Great athlete. So we'll see. Somebody will definitely be intrigued by him.
All right. So Scotty Scheffler won his second green jacket. Rahm last year, Scheffler the year before. He shot 4 under in the back nine and a spectacular closing to the front nine with a shot that ended up about a foot away for an easy tap-in birdie on a very, very dangerous, dicey slope on number 9. He wins it, and we're going to hear from a couple of different analysts on that, including, as Paul mentioned earlier, Andrade is going to join us from RotoWire at 5:30. So, Vern Lundquist, last time that he was going to be at the Masters, they celebrated him throughout the week. He's the one that had the call when Nicklaus came from behind in 1986, and it was maybe yes sir when he had the birdie a putt late in the back nine. Then of course the Tiger chip in an 05. That have you ever seen anything like this in your life? That chip in with winning his what was the time his 4th major championship. So now this is a quote. I thought this summarized Vern Lundquist about as well as anybody can. Sometimes in broadcasting, especially with the new age, there's a lot of wanting to do things that gets attention during a call. Less is more, and we all have to learn that a lot. One of the best never made himself the story, I'll miss him. That was just a golf fan on the retirement of Vern Lundquist after 40 years at Augusta National.
Yeah, it was true. I mean, and look, he was one of my favorite football announcers too. Like everything that Vern Lundquist did, I loved. He was fantastic, and even he will always be my voice of the Masters, even though I've been listening to Jim Nantz do it for so long. Vern Lundquist, because he's the one in my mind of when I first watched the Masters, that's the voice of the Masters to me. That is.
You know what's amazing about you saying that is because he doesn't get a chance. If you look over a 4 to 5, 6 hour broadcast, he's on for just a little bit of time because he's only on a certain hole.
Yeah, he's on. Is he on Amen Corner? Is that where he is?
He was on the 16 tower, and sometimes would look around at other particular holes that he could see from the tower.
Yeah.
Right above the par 3 16th.
But to me, he's the voice of the Masters,
yeah.
And part of the reason is that he's the voice of the back. He's kind of the voice of the back nine, right? So when the Masters starts getting heavy on Sunday, those holes are usually the Vern Lundquist holes.
Yep.
So when you hear, those big moments, the Tiger moments and all that, it's Vern Lundquist who was just so good at his job every which way but loose. And I'm going to miss hearing his voice at all on the Masters. That's gonna bum me out.
Tiger shook his hand after he finished out 16. Not a
Was
good
that
weekend.
that's the picture behind the tree, right?
Yeah, no, there's actually a better one from a different angle.
Yeah, but like the meme that's going around, it looks like Tiger shaking a tree's hand.
Yeah, it was Lundquist who, of course, was broken up, emotional, and it was a really cool moment.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any golf memories per se because I'm not a big golf fan like you guys are, but I definitely, recall hearing him on various calls over the years. I mean, I think of him as like SEC football as much as anything.
Absolutely.
And I know he had the big goodbye with CBS this past season that I think we talked about at the time. So, yeah, I mean, it's a legendary voice that's calling it a career, and hats off to him. Now, I do have a question because I didn't watch it, but was it true that they kind of botched the end there? Like they had the music a little bit too loud for his send-off? Is that true? I saw a comment about that, but I like I said, I didn't see it. So if so, that's unfortunate. I'm sure they can clean it up in post, production. So when it's played again, it's kind of like the Super Bowl halftime show of where they fixed Alicia Keys' voice. Mm-hmm. Like they'll change it to where you can hear him more. But beyond that, like, he had an awesome career, obviously. I'll remember him calling Johnny Football his name and all these other great memories, and certainly some golf memories as well.
Again, when you're covering something that's on TV, it's not a radio broadcast, so you don't have to describe everything. Everyone sees what's going on, and there are some guys that do broadcast of football, whatever, that are overmodulated, and you don't have to sit there and say it's a pass. Everyone sees it's a pass or a run up the middle, and Lundquist was as good as anyone who's ever done it at being less is more, not saying here comes the putt, it's down the hill. He just let it play out with a very, very small amount of lingo at all along the way with Nicholas Woods and so many others he called on number 16 and elsewhere around the course.
Yeah, that's something that young broadcasters, young play-by-play guys eventually learn. Some of them are quicker than others, but yeah, when you're just inclined to feel like you have to describe every single thing that's going on. He's turning left. He's going right. He's like, and it's like, no, you just got to let it, especially on TV. Like radio is one thing, but TV, just let the action do the talking for the most part. And he was very good about, knowing when that was and when that wasn't and when he needed to pop on and add to the atmosphere. And he certainly did on many occasions. So, yeah, I know that was a bittersweet day for a lot of golf fans and also, SEC fans as that career comes winding down.
Absolutely.
He was as good at anything. Like I put him up there with Vince Scully as like one of the guys who was just so good at storytelling no matter what. Like Vin was on radio and television, and you wouldn't know, like each broadcast was kind of the same. Like I remember watching a TV Dodgers game one time and listening to Vince Scully, but I was like walking around the house and not listening, and I was still seeing it. Vern Lundquist on the Masters is the same thing. Like you could walk out of the room if you turn the volume up on the TV, and you would be like, okay, I can see, David Duvall right here about to chip in. I can hear him saying that, and then I can hear him letting, of course, and the Masters is the best one for this. They have the mics and everything. The sound is so good, the ambient sound around it, and hearing the quiet almost of what Augusta National is. He was so good at, okay, I can feel the crowd around me and this emotion, and here's the couple things I'm going to throw in there so that you have context to know what's going on. But the photography here is so beautiful, and the audio is so great. I want you to feel like you're here, and I'm just saying, by the way, this is for the lead on the 16th hole.
And then
just so you know.
Let the crowd, the murmur in the background, the roars, etc., along the way. All right, so